Welcome, everyone, to this DCD Talks. Another incredible opportunity to speak with someone from Legrand. As you know, we've already had Sven Anderson, the CTO, Calvin Nicholson, and now it's my incredible pleasure to introduce Jason Shuntler. You are the product manager for Legrand North America, and we're going to continue kind of this discussion about advancements in rack PDU firmware, but really supporting uptime, Jason. This is wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us, Jason. I do appreciate it, sir.
Oh, Stephen, man, it's a pleasure to be here. And again, thanks for having us come chat.
Absolutely. And get really great to get the input from experts, but also reminding folks, get out there, get with Legrand, wonderful information. Let's start up front. Jason, you actually come from the engineering side of the industry, the network side of the industry. And I got to ask, you've been in the industry quite some time, actually, sorry to say, a long time. How did you end up here, sir? Let's get that first in terms of how'd you get into Legrand? How'd you get into this industry?
Oh yeah, so it started a ways back. My data center career actually started back in the early 2000s. I worked for a very large enterprise data center environment, and my responsibility was managing our x86 based servers from build to deployment. I like to say I managed the entire life cycle of those IT resources for that organization.
Wow, I got to say, it's going to be interesting for you for all the data centers that you actually get into. You got to see all your wonderful work is still there. Thank you.
Oh, it's so amazing. And we can maybe elaborate a little bit more, but I always talk about how the problems and the jobs that are being done are still the same, even though technology and tools have differed over the years, right?
Jason, we're going to get into that right now. The problem, you got to help because the criticality of uptime, that's what we're talking about here. The Uptime 2022 last year, the Data Center Resiliency Survey really said around a lot about power issues. Could you talk about that a little bit to help us? I don't want it to come from me, but single biggest failure point? Help me here. What's going on? And what are all these power quality issues we're hearing about now? Why?
Oh, yeah, it's really amazing. Yeah, you're right. The uptime reported about 43%. Electrical reliability and power quality is a critical part of decreasing these power outages that we continue to see. Many organizations today are really missing the value of having intelligent PDU metering solutions for monitoring and addressing their power quality issues, specifically in this case at the rack. Monitoring power quality events in real time at the rack is the only way to understand power quality within your facility. Interestingly enough, about that report, it also indicated that some of the higher end costing values are also on the rise there too. And I think you and I have spoken before about you can't manage what you don't measure, right?
I mean, absolutely true, Jason. I got to ask, what's impacting facilities now where Legrand's smart, intelligent, rack PDU is really needed now? Is it AI, HPC, HP, or is all this coming together?
I'm glad you asked that. I seems like every time I have a conversation, I can't get through the first 5 minutes without AI coming into the conversation. I always talk about my career a little bit over the years working for other vendors. We used to have a quote that we kept on the wall as we were bringing products to market. And this was probably about 8 or 9 years ago. We used the great Wayne Gretzky quote, "I don't skate where the puck was, I skate to where the puck is going to be." And we thought about it because we want to make sure that we're building products that allow our customers what I used to be, right, more effective and proactive in their environments. So we were talking, throwing around buzzwords like predictive analytics, which is another way to say artificial intelligence in some ways. So this has been a conversation actually that has been around for quite some time. We have just now gotten to the point where our hardware vendors like us are starting to get to the point where we can build effective solutions to take advantage of these newer technologies. If I step back a second and I think about the time that I spent in the data center, I think about those tasks that I would do every day in support of those IT resources. So as I started to move into bringing products to market, specifically like with Legrand, these are the things that we think about all the time. We want to understand not just the pains that exist, but also understand the jobs that are being done by our customers so that we can bring more effective products to market. Not just products, Stephen, but also features and various tools within those solutions that can allow them to effectively manage those. So it's interesting. I always say we live in interesting times. I think you would probably agree.
Oh, yes, very. So now I want to jump into this. This was great because thank you for the perfect lead in, by the way. Can we get specific now, please, Jason? What do we need to be doing? What are the advancements in rack PDU firmware that we need to know about? Because that's critical. Because, when I spoke with Sven and Calvin, I was overloaded with the amount of capabilities that are going on now, what people are looking for, what they need, how all this new requirements for high performance computing is impacting lags and blackouts and brownouts. What do we need to be thinking? What do we as DC operators need to deal with? And how can we deal with it with the Legrand capabilities that are in that rack PDU now?
Yeah, well, Stephen, I think it first starts with what we were mentioning up front, understanding the problems and challenges that data center staff have. And as I alluded to just a minute ago, right, with specifically, though, increasing power demands. But we also have this initiative these days around making sure that we're thinking about sustainability as well. So there's a balance with that. So in order to meet those demands, it really requires, I think, first, an accurate, reliable metrics in order to do things like troubleshooting, specifically power issues, but also valuable in making decisions to increase energy efficiencies and then improve things like availability and capacity management. So in order to do that, as I mentioned before, that they need the right tools to allow them to better understand the quality of that power source. And that power quality meter should include little features like capturing and viewing waveforms. Maybe it's detecting disturbances with short-term under and over voltages, or maybe even measuring things like harmonic power flow. All of this brought in with the capability of our go-to, our old school, tried and true alarms and notifications that we still need today. But those are important because we need those alarms when measurements go outside of our set tolerance ranges so that we know, again, we want to skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it was. So if we can understand by having features and functions like thresholds, then we will know about it, a potential problem maybe before it happens. And that's where the important aspect of the right tool becomes important. So I think the need for reliable, intelligent rack power distribution, monitoring, and control specifically has never been greater, Stephen.
Okay. Again, you walked into that one. So let's talk controls and controllers because, Jason, you've said it for years. We've known each other. You've said it right up front. You always go, draw me a picture. Draw me a picture. So what picture am I looking at? And with these controllers, how does it help me? I mean, I get the point, but help us here. Walk us through it. Draw me a picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I think before we do that, I think it's also important to understand, where we were and where we are today. I'm amazed. I've been in the industry a long time, and I'm really amazed at how far we've come, specifically speaking about rack PDU firmware. The software capabilities on the rack PDUs from then to now is unbelievable in terms of the capabilities. I've only been with Legrand for a couple of years. When I first started, I was blown away by the firmware capabilities, but also the quality of the electromechanical builds, and also the newest generation that we'll get into a little bit. But before we dive in, I think it's also important to highlight that our latest generation of our energy metering circuitry is something to talk about here. This can measure the total energy consumption on the AC inlet level at 0.5% metering accuracy. So what does that mean to the customer? That means our new architecture allows us to produce one of the most energy efficient, intelligent rack PDUs in the market today. But that's the first part of the story. Going back to what I mentioned before about we have to have, it's all about people, tools, and technologies and process. Those are my favorite key words. So when we're building capabilities in the rack PDU firmware, we're thinking about these things. We're thinking about those problems, those pains. And the first one I'd like to highlight is a new feature with our newest generation is the circuit breaker trip forensics. I bring that one up because this is a pain point for our customers. When they're having to identify a device that tripped a breaker, it can be time consuming in order to recover that process. So with our PX4 and Pro 4X, for example, it with its enhanced circuit breaker trip forensics capability, it will automatically identify the outlet and therefore the device that caused that trip. So it's going to save our customers a tremendous amount of time and allow them to resolve those issues faster. In my world, my mean time to repair was a direct correlation to my performance. So it was very critical that I have the right tools and technologies to be able to solve things quickly. Now, to your point earlier, once that circuit breaker is tripped, we give that information in the form of both the PDU GUI or the web GUI as we call it. But if you happen to be standing local at the rack, it will also show up on the PDU LCD screen also. Additionally, we also capture the waveform, which is that I always like to say, you got to draw me a picture, right? It's always more effective that way. And when we talk about waveform capture, we implemented that in a few different ways. We have like an on-demand. So from the firmware itself, the user can just simply drill down to an individual outlet and just manually generate the waveform for that outlet. Or it can be captured based on an event like I was just talking about with that circuit breaker trip forensics. A couple of another really cool aspect to the firmware itself would be the fact that we are capturing those very short duration under and over voltages, dips and swells. And each one of those you can set user configurable thresholds on. So when the event occurs, we are also generating, as part of that event, a waveform capture. So we just want to make sure that we're providing all of that detailed information in order for the end user to make the appropriate decisions about what's happening in their environment.
You know, it really sounds like this controller is a big step up. I mean, a big step up. I mean, monstrous step up. You're almost getting on a ladder. But
yeah,
go
ahead.
No, I was going to ask. You're basically saying that we can capture all the way from capture all this information. This is best and worst case scenario capabilities. It's predictive modeling, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up again because we have another great feature. It's the minimum and maximum value. So this is the ability to measure peak and min-max power quality measurements. If I go back to when I was building a DSIM, one of the first DSIM solutions for the market, we built a really cool feature that enhanced the capacity management capability of that software. So we called it a rack timeline. Essentially, what it allowed the user to do is to see the effect of all the changes that are happening at that rack over a period of time. Because as you know, and as all our customers know, when you first log into the firmware and you're looking at all that data, you're looking at all that data in what we kind of refer to as current state, which is obviously valuable and useful, but it may be also important to understand what was the maximum amount of power that was consumed or the minimum amount of power that was consumed over a certain time period. And that's what this feature really allows the customer to do. So they can really, from the Xeris firmware, it gives the user the ability to understand those values over a certain period of time. So, you know, the example I always give is you have a device that you need to install in a rack. That device is going to consume a certain amount of power. And you need to be able to not just understand what that rack PDU is consuming currently, but what over a period of time, you know, will that be, those numbers be consumed. So in other words, you have a much more effective way of looking at the data that's being collected at the rack PDU level to make better decisions about what to install in the rack.
Let me ask you a question now around those notifications, that information, Jason. So I come from being a third shift engineer. And I got to ask, alarms, notifications, all of these things, the intelligence, sometimes it did me in because it was an avalanche, a tsunami of information, and a lot of it was wrong. Can you help us here? Does this smart firmware and the rack PDU also assist with those alarms, good notifications, good intelligence, so that way I'm not overwhelmed?
Yeah, absolutely. We have all kinds of great features to help really isolate the amount of data that you want to see when you want to see it. It's the way that I like to say it. A good firmware software system is going to be able to provide that user configurable aspect from the inlet down to the outlet level, as we've been talking about. So you really get to see and get the information the way you want. So maybe you just want it as a text message, or maybe you want it as an email, or maybe you don't want to see certain things. You have that ability to really isolate the data down, making it more meaningful. Therefore, you don't have a lot of the noise.
I got to say, these advancement in firmware is absolutely incredible. So let me get back to something that you had spoken about before. Driving efficiency, sustainability. Does this new rack PDU firmware capability and everything that Legrand is offering, you started in the beginning of the conversation, does it also allow me to enter that space of sustainability, reliability, and also the decarbonization of efficiency looking at as an opportunity? Can I have all this also?
Yeah, I mean, and just to add to that, as a vendor, we have kicked off our sustainability efforts as well, from packaging all the way through. So it's an important mission for us, as it's become even more critical for our own customers and the world today, to be more sustainable. So it's always at the top of mind, as we build even new features in the firmware itself, or the way that the electromechanical build is being done, to the packaging of the PDU. All of these things are being paid attention to. But getting back to that, if you don't know where you currently are in terms of the power you're consuming, for example, then you don't know how that is going to be improved over time. So you have to first get that benchmark, as I like to say, to understand where you are. And then with our tools and technologies, specifically with our latest generation, once you have that benchmark, you now can see the improvement over time for measurements that can enhance things like your sustainability goals and things like that.
That's absolutely key. You, as Legrand, are already focused on supporting scope 1, 2, 3 and providing that information and doing it yourself. And now you're helping the customers do it too through the product of the firmware. And I think this is brilliant, really helping. Can I take a step back for a moment, Jason? You talked about the quality of the electromechanical build and the software engineering capabilities. Did you talk about that a little bit? We're getting better.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I think, what a challenge it has been to bring two great PDU brands together. So if we think about Legrand, right, we have the server technology brand as well as the Raritan brand. Yeah. So it's been quite the challenge to bring those two together. And going through this in the past with other vendors, it's really a big challenge to really make sure that we are looking at the best of. Go ahead.
No, go right ahead, please, Jason. I'm sorry. Bringing together the best of breed.
No, yeah, we really, again, a challenge to bring these two great brands together and do it in a way where we continue to lead and innovate in the marketplace. The example is really our Generation 4 products, the PX4 and the Pro 4X. This is really our first common platform that allows us to bring that best of breed from each brand. And if you'll let me, I love to talk about what that really means when I say best of breed. If we think about server technology, as I started to dive in when I started with Legrand, I was amazed with the hardware innovation from server technology. Just two things off the top of my head. HDOT, the high density outlet technology. This is an amazing engineering aspect from server technology that allows us to offer more, or the most, C13 NRCX outlets in a single 42U tall intelligent rack PDU. The CX outlet, if we continue that engineering awesomeness, as I like to say. This is our universal outlet. This is what combines the C13 and C19 into that one flexible outlet. And so this was another innovation from the server tech side. And if I go over to the Raritan side, what an amazing intelligent controller engineering team that we have. So when you think about Raritan, the best of breed falls under that Xeris technology platform, that common firmware platform. Bringing that into the server technology world just added tremendous value. The other is our engineered to order capability from Raritan. So if a customer wants a custom chassis, for example, we can do that. If they have certain power requirements, we can do that. We can do those builds, as the customer requests. So these are the things that Raritan has historically been very good at, combined with the innovative spirit that server technology has around those hardware capabilities. And it's really a solid marriage. It's a winning market marriage, as I like to say.
Absolutely. I mean, to even call it engineered to order, data center operators, when they hear the word customized, they love it. Best of breed and customized, because wonderful. We're going to close out now, but I want to read one item to you from you guys at Legrand. I love this. Okay. And then we're going to finish out. So DCs are now viewing rack PDUs as a network of critical devices that can significantly affect their overall efficiency and effectiveness, and not merely as a collection of power outlets. Simplistic and beautiful. It's a network of IT, and you've been there. You started this. So please take us out. You, as the expert in this industry, having built it all, what do we need to get us out to help us to move us forward? What are the key features again, and what's critical here? Because I just want to say thank you to Legrand and to you, Jason, but take us out. What do we need to be thinking?
What's amazing is, I think back to the early 2000s being in a data center, and we actually called them dumb PDUs. We only cared the fact that it was just an outlet, and we weren't collecting any intelligent data from that device. And we focused on the IT resource as the tool to get some of that data. Well, over the last 2 decades, it's pretty amazing how far we've come today. And if you think about it, most devices in the data center now are becoming intelligent. They have an intelligent network interface. They're going to be able to collect a certain amount of valuable information. Collecting that information is only the first step. Next, you need the proper tools and technologies that allow you to make decisions on that data to effectively reduce the amount of outages that you have. I mean, so I think that's the critical step here is, you can go and get any rack PDU out there, but does it have the capabilities, the value of that firmware, that software, to allow you to make better decisions as events happen? Whether that's a problem, whether that's a change, you need a good intelligent system like the Xeris technology platform.
Jason, thank you for your time. And once again, it's unbelievable. The advancements in rack PDU firmware in supporting uptime, but also the concept of optimizing power distribution, spot on and perfect. Thank you. And to everybody at Legrand, thank you so much for all you do. The product and technology solutions, wonderful. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, Stephen. Been a pleasure.
All right. Take care of yourself, Jason. And once again, to everyone at Legrand, thank you.